What if you're the reason your business isn't thriving? Dylan McCabe breaks down the silent killers, burnout, isolation, and bad habits that could be dragging you under without you even realizing it. In this episode, Dylan peels back the curtain on the entrepreneurial journey. From his mastermind groups to launching a group purchasing organization, Dylan reveals how collaboration and resilience can drive success. Dylan McCabe's true genius lies in bringing leaders together. As the founder of Limitless Roofing Group, Dylan has turned networking into a superpower and a business model. Dylan's approach to avoiding burnout is both practical and inspiring. Whether it's setting boundaries, learning from others, or sharing his biggest aha moments, he proves that growth doesn't have to come at a personal cost. Ready to learn how to grow without burning out? Dylan's wisdom is your guide to thriving in business and life. Let's dive into his transformative journey and actionable strategies. Welcome to the Roofing Success Podcast. I'm Jim Aline, and I'm here to bring you insights from top leaders in the roofing industry to help you grow and scale your roofing business. Dylan McCabe, how are you?
Hey, Jim. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you, brother. Man, it's always good to see you. I haven't been around the shows this year as much, so I haven't gotten to see you. You know, we used to be, like aisle mates at the, at a lot of the conferences and got to know each other over the years, and it's been awesome. Got to watch you, grow from, into building Limitless Roofing Group and all the things you're doing there, from the group purchasing organization to the mastermind and the events and things like that you're doing, which is awesome. And we were just chatting a little bit off camera, and business is tough. Business is tough, man. Like this is not an easy path. What do you think?
Yeah, I think unfortunately some of us have this belief that if we pursue being a business owner, that the God or the universe or whatever you believe is just going to roll out the red carpet and throw all these opportunities at you and open all these doors and just make it smooth sailing. And it's the opposite. It's more like going off to another country to go to war. So the reward can be great, but the challenges can be great too. So it's just so critical to be ready for that and just know, hey, I'm going to sail. I'm going to sail across the ocean, and I'm definitely going to sail through some storms, but I'm going to learn how to sail well, and I'm going to weather those storms.
I think that's the main point. I'm going to learn how to sail well and weather those storms. I've had a lot of conversations recently on the podcast about how the entrepreneurial journey is really one of personal development, right? Like it's almost you grow as a person to such great lengths in this journey. How has your journey been?
Yeah, I think that's 100% accurate. The challenge is not really how to grow a company. The challenge is how to face the limits in my own skills, my own personality, my own ability to manage stress, to maintain healthy relationships, to have work, family life balance. That's the biggest challenge. It's interesting because I met you. You're one of the first people I met. I came into roofing from healthcare 4 years ago, and the first RoofCon conference we attended, you were the first person, I think, in roofing, or one of the first two or three that I met that was in roofing, that was a vendor with your marketing company at the time. And you were so welcoming. And it was such an odd experience because we're at RoofCon, we're with all these different people. We had just started Limitless CEO groups, because I didn't know anything about roofing. I didn't realize that in roofing, they call them masterminds a lot. I was used to the term peer advisory groups. So we started Limitless CEO groups. But it's just so cool, man, to stay in touch over the last 4 years and see how you've grown and exited your company, and you're doing all these other things now. But it's been a good journey, man. It's been a wild ride.
It has. The evolution from those CEO groups into the group purchasing organization. I guess that was an entrepreneurial journey in itself, right? Like, it was a pivot that you guys made. What was what were the challenges that you saw in front of you, and then the pivot, and then the opportunity that you saw to make that pivot? Because I think from
Yeah.
from a business standpoint, it doesn't have to be like the very specifics, but what did you see there? What was going on? Because I think that might be helpful for as business owners.
Yeah. So I've got, I love leadership. I love bringing leaders together. Just special life-changing things happen when you get business owners in a room sharing with one another, getting insight, feedback from one another. So we started the CEO groups and we got these guys together. I became an EOS implementer. So we were taking them through EOS best practices and stuff. But I still had this thought that would kind of nagging thought in my head. Where are the GPOs in roofing, the group purchasing organizations in roofing? And we started asking, and I went to lunch with the owners of the healthcare company I was with, and I told them I'd gotten into roofing. They're like, "Oh, you should start a GPO." And I'm like, maybe so. I don't know. And we started asking our CEO group members, "Hey, have you ever been a part of a GPO, a group purchasing organization?" They're like, "Well, what is that?" Like,
Yeah.
okay, all it is hundreds of us, or one day thousands of us roofing companies would come together and we go to suppliers and vendors and just negotiate group deals and discounts and rebate programs and stuff like that. Like, no, never been a part of anything like that. I'm like, God, how can this be reality? Like, this is it's the roofing industry and every company's buying materials. And so we kept kicking it around. And finally I thought, man, we've got to start one of these. But then the problem is how do you start a buying group or a GPO if you don't have a group? But how do you get
Yeah.
a group if you don't have any deals? So we were really stuck. And I think God provided. And it just so happened that one of our CEO group members had started a supply company because his local supplier had terrible customer service. And he thought, you know what, I've had it. I'm going to start my own. Started his own supply company, grew it. And then it got approached by SRS Distribution they wanted to buy it. And in the process, he got to know Dan Tinker, the CEO, and a few other key executives. And this guy's name is Doss Rousseau. He's a South African guy, wonderful guy. I love Doss. Very successful roofing company. And he said, I think this is a great idea. I'll email Dan and let's just see what happens. So he emails Dan Tinker. Dan emails back within about 30 minutes and said, hey, I'm on vacation, but I'd love to meet with you guys. And I had a meeting booked for 8 months later. So then we went from idea to scrambling to put this business model together, file paperwork with the state, do all this stuff. And then we had a meeting with SRS, Dan Tinker at their corporate headquarters. And it was like an episode of Shark Tank.
That's awesome, man. Like, and that's the thing is like, you have to be watching for the opportunities, right? And then it's when opportunity meets preparation. That's when luck happens, right? Like, and I kind of refer to it sometimes. Well, I refer to it as the art of luck, because you can put yourself through preparation. If you do proper preparation through your life, right? Not just in one single thing, but through your life. If you do proper preparation, when opportunities come your way, you are ready to execute on them, right? So a lot, and so maybe you guys didn't know exactly what you needed to do, but I would assume that prior preparation had led to that moment, right? Where now there's this opportunity in front of us. What that reminds me of is a little bit, or what that makes me think of is, the people that were in your CEO group became, they were kind of some of your relationships that you had in business. And I think that, we've talked about this before, but like how people operate in isolation, right? If you hadn't just started expressing things out loud to your CEO groups, there wouldn't have been the feedback that you needed to kind of move in the direction that you guys have gone. And I see that, in the Roofing and Solar Reform Alliance, you guys with the Limitless group, I see that from a contractor level, that expression at all the roofing shows that we go to, Dylan, sitting down, having lunch with people in the evening, over cocktails sometimes, or whatever it is for people. Sometimes those conversations that are had in those groups at at a lunch table, at a conference, have an outrageous impact on people's business. And, what are your thoughts on that? How contractors should not operate in isolation, or business owners should not operate in isolation.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge to any business owner. And when we have a mastermind group, and one of the ways we frame what you get to experience is that running your business in isolation is like climbing Mount Everest. I mean, you've got this vision of success. Maybe you want to grow to 5 million in EBITDA, a million in EBITDA, 5 million, 10 million, whatever you want to have. You have this idea of what success looks like financially, the kind of lifestyle it's going to give you, the kind of freedom and time it's going to give you. That's why we all got into business, right? We didn't want to be employees. We wanted to grow our own thing and climb that mountain. The problem is, in real life, no one climbs Everest alone. There's no such thing as a solo climber, ever. Never, ever, ever in history has anyone climbed Everest alone and made it alive. There's always a team. And there's a really stirring book called Into Thin Air by John Krakauer. And he was on the climb of Everest back in 1996 when a blizzard hit the mountain, and it was a disaster. And a lot of people died that day, but they made some critical decisions, really bad decisions. One of them was to reduce the amount of oxygen they carried to reduce weight. Another terrible decision they made was to split the team up and start making ascents in pairs and making other team members wait. Well, at one point, the leader of the team goes to make the ascent with another team member, and they never come back. And then the people waiting on them start freezing to death. And it's just all hell broke loose on the mountain, because they were essentially, even though they were a team, they started as a team, they ended up being isolated. So my whole thing is, there's no need to climb your Everest alone. There's other people you can connect with. There's so many good masterminds you can be a part of and just connect. Well, just like we would, if you and I were going to climb Everest, we wouldn't just wing it. We go talk to other seasoned climbers and say, what advice do you have? I'm about to make this climb. What should I know ahead of time? And the same thing in business. Hey, I'd really like to scale this. We're doing 2 million a year. I'd really like to get to 10 million a year with a net profit of 15%. If you could just talk to 3 or 4 other guys that are already there, that's life-changing. So nobody should climb Everest alone, man. It's really foolish.
For sure. It's funny that you bring up Everest. I did a private equity and venture capital curriculum at Columbia University last year. And one of the things that we did was it's a Harvard exercise, and it's a leadership and team simulation, and it's an Everest simulation. And so you're making decisions on, should we move to the next base camp? How much oxygen should we take? All of the things that were in that book, essentially, like of should we split up? Should we stay together? And then everyone on the team had their own goal. So everyone had a personal goal, and then the team had a goal to reach the summit. It was a really cool thing. You could do it with your team. It's the Harvard Business publication publishing leadership and team simulation for Everest. It's only like $15-20 a person or something like that, but it's a really cool simulation in that. But it gives, because everyone that you talk to is going to have their own goals, right? They're going to have done it a little bit differently. So I think that there's also a filter that we should have, right? Like if you're trying to get somewhere, you want to be talking to the people who've gotten there with kind of, especially in the beginning, you want to mimic, right? Like you're mimicking success. I think as you grow, though, you start to be able to take what other people are doing, what other people are saying, and then making your own thing out of that, even if it's slight variations. How have you seen that, with businesses? Do you feel I'm like just copy what someone else did?
No, I think that's good. I think we have one of the mastermind groups we've got a couple of different coaches in there. One has a $40 million a year company. The other has about a $25 million. But the $25 million guy has built a inside/outside sales team. It's a very unusual business model. He's got inside sales reps as closers.
Yep.
And then he's got outside roof inspectors that are not paid a commission. They get paid a flat, small fee for every roof they inspect. And they get to tell the homeowner, look, I'm not a salesperson. I'm just here to take pictures. I'm going to send this over to our office. They're going to send you a report. Take it from there. It's a very unusual and very effective model. So we've got other guys in the group that are looking at that and saying, okay, well, I love, 80% of that. I'm going to take what's going to work for me and my personality and my kind of team that I've got in place.
Yep.
And yeah, you have to make it your own. Obviously, nobody's going to have something that you can copy 100%.
I think that's another thing. I know Monarch Roofing, Martin Pettigrew, if you read his book, The Roofing Machine, they have a version of an inside sales team and outside sales team. It's not the same. It doesn't sound the same. It seems like their inside sales team kind of takes over part of the process if the outside sales rep can't close on it. And I may be mistaken. Martin can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but but these are all, there's so many different ways, and I think it's fun. It's fun to iterate on these things, right? So now, maybe, you read The Roofing Machine from Martin and you get the way that they did it. And then you go and look at the way that this company did it. And then, you kind of feel how your culture should be, because I think a lot of times it's a company culture thing too, right? Everyone's company is a little bit different. The people that they have on their team have different strengths and weaknesses. From a football standpoint, are you a running team or a passing team? To give a sports analogy, right? Maybe understanding your team first. But boy, you need those relationships, right? Like, you need those relationships. You need to know that you're not the only one facing these challenges, or not the first person that has faced these challenges.
Yeah, and I think the key to that is humility. If you're humble and you realize you're not God's gift to creation, you don't know it all, you've got a lot to learn like the rest of us, you're going to seek out wisdom and advice. The Bible says there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors. Man, I've learned the hard way. I need all the wise counsel I can get. So putting yourself in a situation where you're seeking that and you're getting that. And I mean, I can speak for me personally. The best things that have happened in my life have become because of people that I've come across, whether it's a sharp business mind, like one of my business mentors, or a great family man. I mean, I have forever, I have imprinted in my mind a model of what a solid dad looks like. And he's passed away now, but he was the president of the largest privately held insurance firm in the US. So very busy, lots of demands at work. He lived in a very nice house in an affluent neighborhood in Frisco, Texas. But man, when you were with him, this guy, Dan, his name is Dan Browning. When you were with Dan, you were the most important thing in the world. I mean, it was almost like you felt like you were his best friend and his only friend. And he was like that with everybody. At his funeral, there were person after person after person just in tears on the stage saying, Dan made me feel like I was the most important person in the world. And Dan checked in on me one day and sent a text and said, hey, bro, how you doing? And he just stopped by my office on his way home and prayed over me. Just amazing, right? And I got to see the way he interacted with his wife and how he was silly and joked around with her. I got to see the way he interacted with his daughters. It's the people you come across that are the difference maker. And you've got to put yourself in front of these people to have these life-changing experiences.
Yeah. And back to kind of what I think, kind of alluded to earlier is how entrepreneurship is this journey of personal development. That's all personal development, right? Like, and learning how to be a better version of yourself all the time. I know some of those people too that are, and a lot of them are CEOs, like CEOs, true CEOs of large corporations. They're really great at asking you questions, and they're really great at asking you great questions. And those questions lead to that feeling of, man, they really they really care about what I think, right? Like, and I think that there's also a true intention there. I think that people that get into most of those leadership positions, they have to care that much, and so they are that inquisitive about you from a personal level all the way through your work skill set. And so that's awesome, man. I love that. Speaking about that, how you said he would stop in and talk to people more about other things that are just not work related, right? Maybe I know that you spend a lot of time from a leadership level, and then from a just on a personal level, just that life balance. Should I call it life balance, not work life balance? Because I
Yeah.
don't think there is a work. To me, there's not a work life balance, because work is part of your life, right? So maybe I'll reframe it and just call it a life balance. How are you? You know, I know you're doing a presentation here coming up, or if it may have passed since this episode, I don't know when this episode's going to go out, but at Randy Brothers event about this balance, and let's talk a little bit about that. How to, how to build balance in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm giving a talk called How to Avoid Burnout as a Business Owner. And it's something that's going back to my time in healthcare. Physician burnout is a very prevalent topic of discussion. It's talked about at conferences. There's immense amounts of literature written on it. It's something that's been widely studied, and it's a constant problem because physicians work long shifts. It's extremely difficult to have balance in life, and then they have the psychological pressure to save lives and make people better, and then they deal with insurance related issues just like roofing companies do. There's just a lot of pressure. So, but burnout, if you're an entrepreneur or business owner, you run the risk of burning out. And that's a whole nother subject to go deep into, but there's signs and symptoms there. Stress, alcohol abuse, drug addiction, conflict with your spouse at home, all kinds of issues. But I had to learn that lesson the hard way. And I was an apartment manager back in 2009. I was on campus at Dallas Seminary getting a master's degree, and I was the manager of the single students building. So they had an apartment building for the single students, and they had an apartment building for the married couples. So there were 400 to 500 people who all knew me by name. So it's almost like having 400 employees, part-time employees. And so from 5 in the morning till 12 at night, I'd have people calling me, texting me, stopping by. I'm on the way to go get groceries. I'm coming back in at 10:30 at night. Hey, Dylan, you got a minute? I call it death by Gotta minutes. So I started reaching a breaking point because I was not only being overwhelmed by all of these people who were reaching out to me nonstop, but I was also buried under the workload at Dallas Seminary, which is no joke. I mean, between learning Greek and all the different papers and stuff to read, they bury you under books so much to the extent that your first semester, they have a speed reading course they want you to take. Wow. So anyway, I was maxed out, and I'm like, my ship is sinking. This thing is not going to work. So I talked to, again, going back to relationships, I talked to the manager of the married couples building, and I'm like, Alex, how do you do this? Like, how are you not completely maxed out? Like, I'm burning out, man. I'm only 3 months in, and like, I want to quit. And he's like, well, do you have office hours? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm in my office all the time. Like, I never stop. He's like, no. Do you have office hours where you're in the office and outside of which you're not? And I'm like, no. He's like, all right, starting tomorrow, you need to post on your glass of your window of your office hours. He's like, then you need to email the building and tell everybody inside of these hours, you can call, you can text, you can stop by. I am here for you, anything you need. Outside of these hours, send me an email. If it's an emergency, call 911. And he's like, and then you need to take the next 90 days to train your residents on this because they're going to test it. They're not going to get it. It's going to throw them off. And sure enough, man, it took about 90 days, and it took about, hundreds of times of people coming across me and saying, hey, Dylan, real quick. I'd be on campus going to take class. And then, Dylan, real quick, hey, is this about the building? Yeah. Okay. Shoot me an email. Is it an emergency? No. Okay. Shoot me an email or I'll be in my office tomorrow at 9 a.m. It took hundreds of those. And after a while, man, next thing you know, I'm walking around and nobody's stopping me. Nobody's saying anything. And 90% of the time, they never emailed me anyway. So I've carried that lesson. And now, man, in business, I am all in during my office hours at work. I'm trying to grow a buying group, Limitless Roofing GPO. I want to grow it. I want it to be very successful. However, when I'm done, I get home, I grab my phone, I set it face down on the kitchen counter on vibrate. I'm not going to let this get in the way of my marriage or my role as a dad. I take my Apple Watch, I turn it off, take it off, put it in the bedroom. And that's how I have life balance. Work is done. And whatever hasn't been done, I can get picked back up the next day.
That's amazing. That's one of those aha moments, right? Like that. What would you say? I mean, you're really just setting boundaries. Right?
That's
That's
right.
really what you're doing, man.
It's just boundaries. And there's a book called Boundaries, which is a bestseller. And now they got boundaries in marriage, boundaries in work, boundaries for everything. But that's essentially what it is boundaries. And I think you need those for all the main areas of your life, your physical health, your family life, your job, all of that.
So to me, this is a where family is a tough one, right? Like a lot of times it's, especially when you're growing a business and, everyone is on your team is contacting you all the time and you always have jobs to do and things like that. I see how you can set up the office hours for business. I see now. Explain to me. To me, it's kind of a reverse then for family, a reverse boundary hours, right? Or is it like, how are you thinking of that in the same context? How do you set up boundaries? I guess, how do you set up boundaries for your family life, but then also for your family to understand your boundaries outside of family life? Maybe that's the where I'm getting at is how do you set boundaries for your family for the other things in your life?
Yeah, no, I think, people call it rhythms, boundaries, whatever it might be, but I think you can boil it down to 4 areas in life. You've got your faith, your family, your fitness, and your finance. So faith for me, my relationship with God is number 1. My girls are used to seeing me every morning. I got this old metal Bible stand my mom bought me when I became a Christian 20 years ago. Went from being a passionate skeptic to a passionate believer. It was a process. God had to do another big thing to intervene in my life for that to happen. But my girls see me every morning with the Bible. While I'm eating breakfast, I'm reading the Bible just to get some daily truth, right? So my faith is critical to me. My prayer life, those are big. It's just a daily thing. And I'm a pretty structured guy. So it's easy for me to do that every morning and just kind of have it on autopilot mentally. Then after that, I go to the gym, because who cares if I can grow a successful company if I keel over of a heart attack in 5 years? So my physical health is very important to me. I eat the same 2 breakfasts. I've had the same 2 versions of breakfast for years, like decades probably. I either eat a bowl of oatmeal and a little bit of yogurt, or I have 2 pieces of sourdough bread with olive oil instead of butter and 2 fried eggs cooked in olive oil. And I've taken my cholesterol from 250 to 160 in 12 months. I take supplements and stuff like that. I go to the gym, I work out, I want to be healthy. My fitness or my finance is my work, what I do to make money. So I want to be successful there. I typically, I'm available for work between 9 and 5. I am not available before that or after that. My employees know that. Hey, if you send a Slack message at 8:00 at night, I'm gone. Like I'll get to it tomorrow morning. It is not an emergency. We're not in the Navy SEALs. This is not a question of should I cut the blue wire or the red wire or this bomb's going to blow up. So it can wait. So that's faith, family, fitness, and then, the finances, the work stuff. And then, but my family knows that. And that's something that I will not let anything get in the way of. I think business becomes an affair almost when your employees and your company is more important than your spouse or your kids. That's why when I get home, I put this thing face down because I don't want my precious three little girls who are 9, 7, and 4 to ever think that for some reason dad is more attracted. This thing is more special to him than I am. When my 7-year-old's coming up saying, Dad, look at this charm necklace I created. I don't want to be like this. I want now. Oh man, that's so cool, Celeste. I love that. I love the colors. I love this. And I want them to have a healthy view of God too, and a loving God. And a lot of that is the way I'm a father to them. So anyways, it's a big deal to me, man. I'm a little extreme about it.
Yeah. But so now the question is, how do you, like you had talked about the process that you went through of putting in the office hours in the 90 days. What are some actionable steps that someone can take to start to build the boundaries around their faith, their family, their fitness, and their finances?
I think the easiest thing is a routine. And some people thrive with routines. Some people don't feel boxed in. I've got a flexible but pretty simple routine. So I wake up every day. First thing is breakfast and Bible. That's my faith. Then it's family because I'm still there and I'm hanging out with my girls, talking to my wife in the kitchen, the dogs running, whatever. That's family time. Then I go to the gym. That's my fitness. Then they expect this. And then I go to work and that's my finance. I leave work. I come home. I'm home by 5:30 every night, unless I'm traveling at a roofing conference, which is on average 6 times a year. I'm home at 5:30. My wife has already made dinner. She's putting it on the table by 5:45. All of us are sitting at the dinner table, no screens, no TV, no distractions. And we're just talking about how the day went. My 4-year-old's telling crazy stories about her 4-year-old experience at daycare. My other 2 are talking about stuff at school, relationships, whatever. We put our girls to bed and now we get into the marriage stuff. Our girls are in bed by 8:30. I've got an hour and a half to 2 hours one-on-one with my wife, who's my best friend, to sit and talk, to watch a show together, to do whatever together. And all those boundaries are kept in place by that routine.
Yeah. How do you balance the business aspect, or how do you see roofing contractors balancing the finance aspect? Because that's what seems to bleed over into all of the other aspects of life, especially when you're kind of in startup and growth mode.
Yeah, I think the challenge is as soon as possible, you've got to get a good operator. A lot of guys that start roofing companies are visionary entrepreneurial types. I know that's a broad sweeping statement, so there can be holes in that in different situations. But for the most part, if you start a business, you're driven, you're good at sales, you've got to get an operator, a business partner, a operations manager, somebody, and I think somebody that's worth even giving a little equity to at some point, maybe. But you got to get that person in place so that the business is not you-centric. If the business is you-centric and you don't have systems and people in place to where you can leave for 2 weeks and it keeps running like a well-oiled machine, you have a you-centric business. And if something happens to your health or to whatever, your business is going to completely capsize. So I think that's the deal. Is as soon as possible, you've got to put those people, that team in place, get that organizational chart there so that you can have those boundaries, and that business, you're running the business, it's not running you.
Yeah. And it's a hard hill to climb in the beginning, I think. And I think that some of it, Dylan, is around, for me as a business owner, early in my business ventures, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life and I've made all kinds of mistakes. But for me, some of the early mistakes were I didn't know how to hire. I would hire somebody, not the person that I should hire, right? Like I would hire when I needed to hire. I would hire versus recruit. Maybe that's a better way to put it, right? And I think that skill set in recruiting and finding the right person, how would you advise that roofing contractor to go from being in that you-centric business to turning it into that business, turning over those responsibilities that give you that time back from your business?
Man, that's such a good question. Here's the problem with most roofing business owners, and my problem too, is we are good at sales. So you're going to interview somebody and you're going to sell them on the opportunity. So instead of interviewing them, you're persuading them to step into that role, and you're persuading them that they can be effective in it. So going back to people, we need people who are much wiser, much more skilled at this. We just started using Culture Index. So Culture Index is an assessment similar to DISC and all the others. However, Culture Index claims that they are 97% accurate. And I believe it because I've actually taken the Culture Index survey twice in 20 years and gotten the exact same result. What Culture Index does is it shows tendencies and traits. It's not about just personality. It's more about ways of relating, tendencies, and stuff like that. So we're interviewing people right now for a sales rep position. The first step, if they apply, is, hey, this is great. Here's this short survey we need you to fill out. We get that. We send it to our Culture Index coach. And then I'm texting him at the end of the day, hey, can you give me a green light on whether to interview these 5 people? And he's like, no, 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 no. And then yes and yes. Or he'll call me and he'll say, hey, this is what we call a rainmaker. This guy is going to make you a lot of money. However, here's some things to be aware of with this type. And they know that because they've looked through hundreds of thousands of these, and they know that it rings true. And so that's been super helpful for us to clear the fog. And then you can decide, you've got 3 areas of your business. You got sales and marketing, operations, and finance. That Culture Index will completely clear the fog on, hey, you just interviewed this person, they applied for this role, but really they'd be better in operations. And that way you can start building your bench too. Like maybe you're interviewing salespeople. Some of these people may be incredible operators, and you can tell them that, like, hey, you're not really a fit for this role. However, you scored extremely high over here. I'd like to keep talking to you about maybe running our back office.
Yeah. The personality profiles are interesting, from DISC to Kobe to Culture Index and all these different things. It is fascinating, man. And so what that makes me think of first is maybe you need to know who you want, right? Like, just like we know our perfect customer, like we know that we want to deal with this type of homeowner. We need to know who we want in our business. And you said, right, do you want a salesperson, an operations person, a finance person? Like what bucket are they in? What skill set do we need there? These are some of the things that we don't think about early on. I think it's like, man, I need someone to help me with. And I like what you said. You kind of sell them on on what they'll be doing. Like, oh, you could do all this. And, like, yeah, you'd be great at it. I think there is a sales aspect to recruiting, a strong sales aspect, but you're selling your culture and the opportunity for their growth in the company versus, convincing them that they could do the job, right? So in these personality profiles, maybe that's a good place for people to start. It is, okay, I need to know how DISC works or how Culture Index works, or how some of these things work, so that when I go to get the person that I need. So that's what I'm thinking of, because we make those early hiring mistakes, and we hire the people that'll get us there, but not to where we really want to go. And so, what other advice could you give there? Okay, so they've learned how to use a personality test. What else can they do to find the right person for that seat?
Yeah, I think the next step is just to make sure, finding the people shouldn't be that hard between ZipRecruiter and Indeed and LinkedIn and so on. You should be able to get way more applicants than you need, and then some filter like Culture Index. And by the way, if somebody joins our free GPO, they get a discount on Culture Index. We believe in it that much that we're using them ourselves. But after that, you need a solid training program for the next 90 days, or you're just setting them up for failure. And I think roofing, going back to a broad sweeping statement, many roofing companies have an extremely poor training program. And it's like, hey, ride around with me for a week or two, and then you're off on your own. Go knock those doors. That's what I had to do. You really should have, I mean, you should have an online university. You should have very clear SOPs. Throwing a manual that's this thick at somebody, that's great for them to go back and refer to, but you should have product knowledge on the roof system.
Mm.
You should have knowledge on the sales process, the scripts, and then you should test them on that. And now with AI, you can have iterative AI that they can role play with. You can tell the AI what prompts you. I mean, you should have a robust training system.
You can honestly just go into Chat GPT and say, I want to build a training system for this. You're an expert trainer. I own a roofing company. I'm looking to build out a training system for my insert role here. Please ask me any clarifying questions that you would like. That end of the prompt of please ask me any clarifying questions, ChatGPT will just start asking you the questions and start building out that plan. That's my friend Jonathan Mast. Check out his prompt engineering course. It's awesome. It's like $100 or something like that, maybe $150. But it's
cool.
Like it's that version of it. But I think that this is where we're going. We have this. We can use ChatGPT in so many ways, and Claude and all the other large language models. Man, it's getting easier and easier. In this business, Dylan, like you said, like I was one of the first people you met, and I was really friendly, and boy, that's how the roofing industry is to me.
Yeah.
Like it's been that way to me, right? It's just there's a culture in the roofing industry. There's other aspects to it there's some really hard, strong personalities also, and some ego involved, which is, I'm fine with playing in that arena because I'm a competitive person, and but it's a fun competitiveness to me. And so, as we're building this out further, now how do we find those things in our life? Because we can find the people for our business to help with our finances. We know how to recruit them. We're looking for the right person. How do we take these same things and move it into, like, how do we have more structure around our family or our fitness, kind of thinking about these same, maybe similar models, right? Like are we buying our, Dan Martell's buy back your time book kind of thing is what it reminds me of in your finances. How do you apply these things to your faith, your family, your physical? How can we use some leverage? It sounds like leverage to me. How can we have some leverage in those aspects also?
Yeah, I think you just need to kind of grade yourself. And as especially as men, we can be hard on ourselves, especially if you're the sole provider and breadwinner and stuff like that. But I think for me, going back to Dallas Seminary, I had a professor one day for the very first class, and there was probably 100 students in the class. And he wrote up on the board, here's what it's going to take to make an A in this class. You're going to have to read these 8 books, write these 5 papers. You're going to have to score a 98 or above on this test, and whatever. And he's just going down the list. You're just like, great. This is one of 5 classes. I'm already feeling overwhelmed. He's like, and he turned to all of us and he said, however, some of you are married. Some of you have kids. Some of you have other responsibilities out of getting this master's degree. And his exact words were, it would be a sin for you to make an A in this class. He said, some of you need to go for the C. And I was like, whoa, what is happening? My mind was just blown. He's like, because if you make an A in this class, your marriage could be on the rocks a year from now. He's like, we've seen it. We've seen so many students come in and then they're getting a divorce a year or 2 later because they made getting an A that basically their God. They made it the most important thing in life. And so I think you got to grade yourself. How is your marriage? Are you still dating your wife? Do you guys laugh a lot together? Are you keeping quick accounts, resolving conflicts quickly? Or are you going to bed angry with one another 2 or 3 times a week? Like, go for that A in your marriage. How's your health? How's your blood pressure and your cholesterol? Are you working out 3 or 4 days a week? Or are you working out once every 2 months? You got to take care of yourself. We're not made to have sedentary lifestyles. We weren't designed to sit at a desk all day. Hundreds of years ago, everything was manual. People were in amazing shape. How's your faith? What do you believe about yourself? What's your spiritual life? Just make a little report card. And man, if the only thing you're striving for an A in his business, it's just time to make little incremental changes. I love the book Atomic Habits because it's like, I don't have to make these huge changes. I can make a little change. Say, you know what, from now on, I'm going to do one lunch date with my spouse a week. Evenings are too hard. We're going to do lunch dates. Or from now on, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to start at 2 days a week for the next 90 days, and I'm going to get a trainer. Just little changes.
Yeah, little changes. But I love that. That must have been an aha. That's a huge aha moment. Whoa, I can get a C.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. Like, I'm still passing, right? Like, and maybe that's a struggle in your business. You don't want to have a C business, but maybe that C in business is that you go from 4 to 4.5 million this year. That's a C to you. Maybe a B would be you go to 5.5, and an A you go to 7, right? Maybe that's your is that where I'm hearing? Like, now you can say, okay, I'm all right. Like, in my fitness, the 1 day a week to the gym or 2 days a week to the gym, that's my C, right? Like, and if I'm, working out with a trainer and doing all these things, and now maybe I'm changing my diet more, now that's an A, right? Like, am I down the right path there?
I think that's great. Yeah. As long as the one thing you can't make an F in is your relationships. One of my business mentors, lives in a very affluent area of Dallas where most of the lots are several acres and the homes are massive. He had a really good exit from an international company about 15 years ago. And his neighbor across the street lives in what looks like a small castle. And so I'm used to going to his house, not the neighbor, but my friend's house. I used to go every week to a Wednesday morning men's Bible study. And it was a bunch of retired guys that had exits from their companies, just great guys, very humble, generous men. And but one day I asked my buddy, what's the story with your neighbor? There's this massive home. I never see any lights on. I've been to your house in the morning. I've been in the evening. I've never seen any cars over there. He said, oh, yeah, that guy owns hundreds of dental practices all over the U.S., but he's divorced, lives all alone, and is never home. And I thought, wow, I'm richer than that guy. Like, I've got a healthy marriage. I've got 3 little girls that think I'm their hero. I've got a healthy relationship with God that I love, and that's because of his gift, not because of anything I've done. I'm richer than that guy. That guy's probably a billionaire, and I've got more wealth in life than he does. I don't have anywhere near the kind of money he does, and maybe never will. But I just think you got to make sure you don't make an F in that family area, man, and not to bring shame to anybody, because if you've had some big setbacks, just to pursue health in that area from now on.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think that's a kind of a great place to end here. Dylan, it's been awesome having you. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Thank you for tuning into the Roofing Success Podcast. For more valuable content, visit roofingsuccesspodcast.com. While there, check out our sponsors for exclusive offers, shop for merchandise, and sign up for our newsletter for industry updates and tips. Also, join the Roofing Success Facebook group to connect with other professionals and stay updated on the latest trends. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. Your support helps us continue to bring you top industry insights. The website link is in the description. Thanks for listening.